Hey everybody, welcome back to part 3 of hopefully this 3-part series on fabricating the squared around transition. In part 1 you should have seen that we have drawn the plan. In part 2 we cut it out and actually fabricated the main base portion of the material. And then in part 3 I want to build the collar and assemble this. So let's get on with it from that point on. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is go ahead and assemble this part of the project. Now you can do it before or after, it's entirely up to you, but regardless it's got to be together, so we're going to assemble that next here. And we're going to assemble that using a couple of pop rivets and an 1/8 inch drill bit. So we're just going to drill this through. If you recall, we bent this opposite of what we normally do, meaning we ran it through the lock form machine lines down, and that put that flange on the inside to give us a little bit more area to secure those pop rivets. So keeping myself low enough here that I don't interfere with the collar, and keeping myself high enough that I won't interfere with the S-clip is where I want to drill these. So let's get everything squared up, lined up, and then let's put the first one in. And then with our rivet gun here, we're going to drop a rivet in there if it's the right size. And then we'll make sure the bottom is squeezed together tight and taut. And we're going to put the last one in up in here someplace. Hopefully this side of the bit drills a little better. Put that other rivet in there. Okay, now that we got the base of the unit together, what we need to do is we need to put a bead around here, or some people refer to it as a hem, but we're going to throw the bead on here and put that roll. And we're going to spin over here, and we're going to put that on using this machine right here. And so if you look at it, you'll notice that there's two wheels. There's an upper wheel up here, and then there's this lower wheel. And when we crank this through, it's kind of like running the easy edger up against this depth gauge adjustment here. We're aiming for about 1/4 inch to put that on there. So we're going to start at the seam. I'm going to loosen the depth gauge up. Start just beyond the seam here. Put a little bit of tension on that. And then we're going to crank that through, trying to maintain the spacing on the fence and keeping everything straight with that fence. And if I loosen it now, you'll see that we're starting to get this little rolled bead on there. So we want to go a little bit further than that yet. We want to have it so it makes kind of a J hook where two of them can hook together. So we're going to cinch that back up. We're going to go further. And as we make the next round here, kind of back this back off, what you're going to see is I'm going to start pulling this thing up so it gets tighter and tighter on that little J bend for that bead. And then loosen it up, take it out of there, and that gave us that rolled top, that little J-bend top on there. And then if we just kind of reform that circle, that should be pretty decent for you. Okay, that's the first one. The next thing is to work on the connecting ring here, or the collar, that's got to go on here to connect your 6-inch round ductwork to that. And if we look in our book here, we'll notice that they've spec'd this out that they want it to be 2 1/4 inches in height, and then it's going to be approximately 20 1/2 inches in length. I don't know, it kind of depends on which project, if that 20 1/2 comes out just perfect, but if it was a perfect 6-inch, that should be darn close. So I just walked over to the sheet metal bin, and lo and behold, I had a 2 1/4 inch wide piece laying there from a drop, and this one is a length of about 24 inches is what we're going to start with. So we're going to basically take this and we're going to roll that around there in a little bit for that setup. But first thing is we got to put that bead, that same bead on this one to the inside. So I'm going to take my scribe, set it on the table, and get myself a 1/4 inch mark so I've got something to follow with the bead. Previously, I had those punch marks up on there that I was able to follow. Here I don't have them, so I'm going to apply them. Unless you want to put them on there, they're kind of demonstrating it, but it's somewhat unnecessary for right now. Alright. The other thing we want to do on one edge is we want to have a 1/2 inch area where we can set our rivets in later on. So we're going to put a mark down there to indicate the 1/2 inch right now. And I'm going to cut that out. I'm just going to notch that out with a tin snips straight off there so that roll doesn't get in the road with one another. That's as far as I'm going to go right now. It might be a good idea to go back 1 inch and then overlap at the inch. We could do that too. I'll put my dimension on there. I can show you that as well. Being the 1/2 inch is where we're going to drill our holes, I'll go back an extra 1/2 inch there with the bead, so when the other side wraps around, it can kind of lap over that. So let's put the bead on this part next. Okay, so you notice how it kind of is rolling around. Now we're going to tighten it up some more and then start that curl back under. Okay, so we got the J bead on there, and what that's going to eventually do is that's going to hook against that, but we got to roll it the opposite direction. So in order to do that, we're going to take these parts over to our roll former over here, and you'll notice on this roll former it's got some areas for rolling wire. We're going to slip that in there in the groove that fits the best. And it looks like we're getting close there, so let's open that up, take it out, and see how it fits. It appears that things are really close, just that the collar is a little bit long, so next we got to cut that off to fit the length we need. So setting that collar, previously you've seen that I actually cut this notch out so I could overlap some of this ring here. So that's what we want to find, is we want to find our measurement where this all fits properly underneath that collar. And this can be really a two-handed job. There's no question about it. So for right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of get it close. I'm probably going to cut this a couple times. Just get it in the area there, and then we'll finish fitting this up to the length we need. Okay, we're back here. We've got the new battery now. And let's put this back together. Once I've got it that far, where everything appears to be fitting decent and tight up under the double J hook there, the J lock, what we're going to do is we're going to try to cinch this thing together and clamp it with a small pair of vice grips. Especially if you're by yourself, it's pretty difficult to do. So I recommend a friend anyway. Okay, I think I got it. Looks pretty decent. So let's go ahead and put the first rivet in this section. Now we're going to try and keep our rivets a little bit down so when we go through our crimper they don't get in the road too badly there. Alright, and now if you want you can do just a little bit of trim fabricating so you can measure your 6 inches and make sure that's going to fit. So again with the second rivet, and we'll put the last rivet in the part. That's pretty much it. That's pretty much the squared around. There's one last thing that we need to do, so we're looking around there. There should be no gaps. Everything should be tight. If you got a partner, it's much easier to do that with. But we need to go ahead and put a crimp on it. So in order to do that, we've got a crimping tool. I've got it right here, and we're going to run around and put that crimp on it. When using the crimping tool, it's important not to squeeze them too far. Otherwise, it can look pretty disastrous. So just a kind of a mild crimp around there is what you're going to look for, and that's going to cinch that up just a little bit tighter yet too. And it should make this project work. Alright, there we got it, a fairly smooth looking crimp around there, and that should pretty well wrap up the squared around fitting. Okay, one last thing then is to check your 6 inch. So I've got just a straight boot here with a 6 inch opening. That should slip down on there pretty decent and be able to make that connection. And that's not too bad. It fit and it tightened up as we went to the outside. It could be maybe just a little bit tighter. So I'm going to demonstrate one other machine that we have here in the shop. Usually won't have this out in the field, but usually these are squared arounds are fabricated in the shop. And that is this crimping tool here. So if you notice the wheels, they're a little bit different on it, but you'll set that in there, set your depth on it that you want it to crimp on the collar. Set that out there, and then you can adjust your wheels and then crank that around to put that other crimp on. It's a little smoother crimp than your tool, but most of the time we don't have this Pexto machine out in the field. So with that being said, it's just a matter of measuring it, making certain it fits, making certain the collar is tight on there. So you're looking for that 6 inch mark, so that fits over that, and that should hook up with that collar real nice and smooth. So just like that. So with that being said, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you catch me on the next one. So thanks for watching. I appreciate it. We'll catch you later.